Don't even think about it. You're not stealing your sister's credit. That's what my mom screamed, her words ricocheting off the living room walls like a slap. I just sat there on the edge of the couch, stunned, my cheeks burning with a mix of humiliation and rage. I could feel everyone's eyes pressing in on me, waiting to see what terrible thing I'd do next. It was Christmas Eve, but the warmth in the house felt fake. The tree sparkled in the corner, ornaments glinting, pine needles scattered across the carpet. Cinnamon drifted from the kitchen, but none of it cut through the suffocating tension. Supposedly, the holidays are about togetherness, but right then, all I felt was the weight of being misunderstood. Again. I'm Sophie, 28 years old, and somehow still the family's afterthought. It sounds dramatic maybe, but it's true. My sister Olivia, the golden child, could have set the house on fire, and my parents would have complimented her for her passion. Me? I couldn't sneeze without someone finding something to criticize. But tonight the sting was sharper. This wasn't about some forgotten chore or a snide remark. This was about what I'd actually done, and how Olivia had twisted it in her favor. Since July, I'd been scraping together every spare dollar, quietly sending money to my parents to help with bills. It wasn't easy. I'd stopped going out, turned down dinners, and skipped things I wanted just so I could help out. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that even if they never said thank you, I'd know. But Olivia somehow managed to swoop in and claim the credit for it all. And the worst part? My parents believed her without a second thought, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. When I finally tried to tell them the truth, my mom shut me down so fast, it was like she was afraid I'd contaminate the air with my words. My cousin Na had been sitting quietly in the corner, watching the whole train wreck unfold. She wasn't usually one to get involved. She'd learned over the years that speaking up in my family only got you labeled as trouble. But something about tonight must have pushed her too far, because she suddenly leaned forward, her voice slicing through the room. "Wait a second," she said, her tone steady but sharp. "How do you know Olivia's been sending the money? Did she ever show you proof? Bank statements? Screenshots?" For a moment, the room went silent. My parents stared at her, stunned, as if she'd just committed sacrilege. My dad waved a dismissive hand. Of course, Olivia wouldn't lie about that. She's always been the responsible one, even as a kid. She's never given us any reason to doubt her. Responsible. That word landed like a punch. I remembered all the times I'd quietly covered for Olivia's mistakes. The times I'd bitten my tongue when she'd gotten away with things that would have gotten me grounded for weeks. But none of that mattered now. 6 months of sacrifice, erased with a single word. Right then, the front door banged open and Olivia swept in, a plastic bag of candy swinging from her hand. She looked radiant, cheeks pink from the cold, her smile glowing like she'd just won a prize. "What's going on?" she chirped, her voice bright, but her eyes scanning the room and locking onto the storm brewing between me and our mother. Within seconds, she put on her wide-eyed, innocent act, tilting her head just so, like she couldn't possibly understand the drama. "You need to explain to your sister," Mom snapped, pointing a shaking finger at me. "She's trying to say she's the one who's been helping us out. As if we wouldn't know it was you." Olivia's gaze flickered, just for a second, toward Na and me. Something cold and calculating passed behind her eyes before she composed herself. She laughed, light and airy, as if this was all a big misunderstanding. "Oh, Mom," she said, setting the candy on the coffee table. "I think Sophie just misunderstood. I've been handling it for months. I didn't want to worry her, that's all." I stared at her, the magnitude of her lie crashing over me. "Misunderstood?" My voice shook, half with anger, half with disbelief. "I've been sending you money every single month since July, Olivia. You knew it. You've let them believe you were the one helping, and you never said a word." Na stepped forward, folding her arms over her chest. Her glare was icy. "Yeah, Olivia, if you've been so generous, why haven't you mentioned it before now? Why keep quiet?" Olivia's smile wavered, her eyes narrowing just a little before she forced herself to relax. She flipped her hair over her shoulder, voice dripping with condescension. "I'm helping out because, unlike you, I actually care about Mom and Dad. I didn't feel the need to advertise it." That was it. The last straw. I stood so fast my chair scraped a harsh line across the floor. "You've been letting them believe a lie for months. You knew exactly what you were doing, Olivia. You wanted to play the hero while I looked like I didn't care. Na stepped between us, holding up a hand to keep the peace. Everyone, just stop, she said, her voice rising. There's an easy way to settle this. Did Olivia ever show you any proof? Bank statements? Even one screenshot? Or are you just taking her word for it? My parents exchanged a look, their certainty faltering for the first time. My mom's voice was suddenly small. Well, no, but we didn't think we needed to. Olivia's always told us the truth. Olivia turned to Na, her eyes cold and hard. You're out of line, Na. This is a family matter. You don't know what's been going on here. Na didn't back down. I know enough. I've watched you take credit for things you didn't do since we were kids. You've been lying, Olivia, and deep down you know it. Olivia let out a bitter laugh, rolling her eyes. You're unbelievable, she spat, pulling out her phone. Fine, you want proof? Here. She started scrolling, her fingers moving fast, too fast, like she was stalling. Finally, she thrust her phone at my parents. See? These are the receipts for the transfers I've made every month. Right on schedule. My mom's face softened as she studied the PDFs, but I could see the doubt flickering there now, a crack in the foundation of her certainty. I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest, desperate for the truth to finally break through. I wanted them to see me, not as the troublemaker, not as the afterthought, but as someone who loved them enough to sacrifice, even if I never got the credit. I wanted just for once to be seen. Let me see those, I demanded, my tone sharper than I intended, snatching the phone from Olivia before she could even blink. The receipts lined up, her name in bold, precise amounts, transaction IDs that matched what I remembered from the bank's website. It all looked perfect, almost too perfect, as if someone had practiced forging them until they could do it in their sleep. My eyes narrowed as I flipped through the screenshots, my breath coming quick and uneven. There was a tiny, almost imperceptible feeling crawling under my skin, telling me something wasn't right. It wasn't just the receipts. It was the way Olivia's jaw was set, the way her hands trembled ever so slightly as she watched me scour her screen. I glanced at Na, who'd been right next to me a second ago, her presence like a safety net. She leaned in, curiosity flickering across her face, but I could see the apprehension building in her eyes as the tension between us thickened. This is a lie, I burst out, the words ricocheting off the walls. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, too loud, too raw. The room froze, everyone's gaze snapping to me. But I couldn't stop. You faked these, Olivia. Don't stand there pretending you've been helping out when you haven't sent a single dime. Do you think I'm stupid? My chest was heaving. My fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached. I glared at Olivia, daring her to deny it, to finally admit what she'd done. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in her eyes, quickly masked by a smug, defiant look. She clutched her phone to her chest like a life preserver, lips curling into a smirk, as if she'd already won. Na, who'd been all sharp and ready to leap to my defense, suddenly pulled back. I saw her uncertainty bloom, her bravado draining away as she shifted her weight from foot to foot. I don't know, she mumbled, eyes darting away from Olivia's icy glare, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I went too far. She was retreating, not ready to pick sides, not with the air so thick you could almost taste the hostility. Olivia just hugged her phone tighter, her expression unreadable except for the little glint of satisfaction in her eyes. Fine, I snapped, yanking out my own phone, my hands shaking with adrenaline and humiliation. You want proof? I'll show you my bank statements right now. I have nothing to hide. I opened my banking app, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe, and the screen froze, the spinning wheel of death mocking me. No, I whispered, frantically tapping the screen, willing it to work. Nothing. I closed the app, reopened it, tried again, but the same frozen screen stared back at me, taunting. Come on, I hissed, panic clawing up my throat. It was useless, dead in my hands, and all I could do was watch as my last chance at vindication slipped away. Olivia's voice cut through my panic, cold and triumphant. How convenient, she drawled, folding her arms with practiced ease. The one time you actually need to prove something, your phone just happens to stop working. That's a little too perfect, don't you think, Sophie? Humiliation burned in my cheeks. But before I could retort, My dad's voice thundered across the room. Enough! He pushed his chair back, the legs screeching against the floor. He loomed over me, his face carved in stone, disappointment radiating from him like heat. You've humiliated yourself enough. If you can't back up these accusations, you owe your sister an apology. Right now. His voice was icy, final in the way only a parent's can be. And if you can't do that, you can pack your things and leave. I'm not letting you ruin Christmas with your jealousy, Sophie. I stiffened, feeling the weight of every eye in the room pressing down on me. My throat felt like it was closing up, but I forced myself to speak, my voice cracking with emotion. Apologize for what? For telling the truth? For being the only one who sees what's really happening? For being tired of living in her shadow while she takes credit for everything I do? My words echoed in the silence, but my dad only pointed at the door. You have 5 minutes to decide, he said, his face unmoving. I didn't wait. I grabbed my coat, my movements jerky, and stormed out into the freezing night, slamming the door behind me. The cold hit me like a slap, stinging my cheeks, but I barely noticed. Hot tears blurred my vision as I stumbled to the car, each breath coming out in shaky gasps. I'd never felt so invisible, so utterly alone. Christmas was supposed to be about family, about warmth and belonging. But all I could feel was the sharp ache of rejection, like I was an outsider in my own life. I drove through the sleeping town, the streets empty except for patches of colored light shimmering on the snow from the Christmas decorations. They looked almost mocking, tiny beacons of cheer in a night that felt impossibly dark. As I drove, my mind replayed the argument over and over, dissecting every detail, every word I'd said, every look on Olivia's face. How could she do this to me? How could my parents just accept her story without a second thought, without even giving me a chance? I didn't have a destination in mind. I just kept driving, trying to outrun the humiliation, the anger, the overwhelming sense of betrayal. Somehow I ended up in the parking lot of a 24-hour coffee shop, the neon lights inside throwing strange shadows on the snow. I stumbled inside, numb, and found a booth in the corner where I could curl up and disappear. My phone was still clutched in my hand, useless, but I couldn't stop checking it, hoping for some miracle. The banking app was no help. Every time I tried to log in, it flashed the same infuriating message. We're experiencing a major technical issue. All services, including ATMs, are temporarily unavailable. We're working to resolve this as soon as possible. Thank you for your patience. Patience. The word made me want to scream. It felt like the universe itself was working against me, piling on inconvenience after inconvenience until I felt like I might break. I refreshed the app over and over, as if sheer willpower could force it to work. It didn't. The world kept spinning, uncaring, while I sat surrounded by empty coffee cups and mounting dread. An hour slipped by, the clock ticking quietly above the counter. I watched people come and go, the night shift workers grabbing coffee, a couple of students bent over textbooks, a tired-looking barista wiping down tables. I was invisible here, just another lost soul hiding from their problems. My phone buzzed, breaking through my haze. It was a message from Na. Hey, are you okay? I've been thinking. And if you need a place to crash, my door's open. I'm not sure what to believe right now, but you've always been honest with me. Let me know. For the first time all night, I felt something shift inside me. A tiny glimmer of relief. A reminder that I wasn't completely alone. Na believed me, or at least she wanted to. She was caught in the middle, torn between loyalty to me and the evidence that was stacked against me. I couldn't blame her. Olivia had made sure her proof looked flawless, and with the app down, all I had was my word. Still, Na's message was a lifeline. I clung to it, rereading her words until they blurred. At least someone was willing to give me the benefit of the doubt. My parents lived in one of those small towns where everyone knew everyone else's business, where rumors spread before you'd even finish speaking. I'd come home hoping for a quiet Christmas, maybe a little peace, some sense of belonging. Instead, I found myself an outcast, driving empty streets in the dead of night, holding on to the steering wheel as if it could keep me from unraveling completely. When I finally pulled into Na's driveway, I saw her silhouette waiting at the door, wrapped in an oversized blanket and cradling a mug of tea. Her porch light was the only thing illuminating the snow, making the world outside seem even colder and lonelier in contrast. She opened the door before I even got out of the car. her face a mess of emotions, worry, hesitation, something like hope. "Come in," she said softly, her voice warm despite the uncertainty in her eyes. I stepped inside, the heat a shock after the freezing night. Na didn't push me to talk. She just handed me the mug, guided me to the couch, and let me sit in silence. I could finally breathe, really breathe, for the first time since the world had turned upside down in my parents' living room. After a while, when the silence had settled and my hands had stopped shaking, I found my voice. "I'm not lying, Na," I said, my voice small but steady. I stared into the mug, watching the steam curl into the air. "I've been sending them money every month since July." Olivia knew. She let them believe it was her. "Those receipts she showed, they're fake." "I know it." Na nodded, her movement slow and tentative. "I believe you," she said, but her voice wavered. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the way she struggled to reconcile what she knew about me with the evidence Olivia had presented. "But you have to admit, it doesn't look good right now. Especially with your app not working. It's like the universe picked the worst time for everything to go wrong." I nodded, feeling the frustration burn in my chest. "I know," I whispered, voice thick with exhaustion. "It's just, no matter what I do, it's never enough. She always finds a way to turn everything around on me, and I'm the one who ends up looking like the bad guy." Na reached over, placing her hand over mine. Her touch was gentle, grounding, and for the first time that night, I felt a little less alone. "We'll figure it out," she promised. "You're not the only one who's seen what Olivia's capable of. I just wish your parents would listen." So we sat there, two friends huddled together against the world, sipping tea as the night wore on. I didn't know what would happen in the morning, or how I'd ever clear my name. But for now, in the warmth of Na's living room, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as lost as I'd thought. If the bank system's back up tomorrow, I'll show them the proof. I'm not setting foot in that house on Christmas Day unless I can prove Olivia's been lying. No way. I sat there, my gaze fixed on nothing, thoughts tumbling over themselves in my head. Everyone would be there tomorrow. My parents, Olivia, the whole family gathered in their holiday best. I could picture the living room, the twinkle lights, my mother's anxious smile, the way Olivia would hold court, acting innocent. If I walked in with proof, there'd be no more sidestepping, no more twisting the story. She wouldn't be able to wriggle out of it. The truth would be out in the open, finally. "Exactly," I said, my voice steady, refusing to back down. I'd spent too many years letting Olivia rewrite the narrative, turning my mistakes into character flaws, painting herself as the victim. I'm not letting her make me the bad guy. Not again. Nina gave me a small, encouraging smile. I could feel her support like a lifeline. "You can stay here as long as you need," she said gently. "And tomorrow, fingers crossed, the bank system's working. Maybe the universe will actually cooperate for once." That night, sleep was a struggle. My mind replayed every conversation from the past week, every doubt, every accusation. What if the bank never fixed the system? What if Olivia found a way to spin things, even in the face of evidence? I tried to push those thoughts away, telling myself I just needed one piece of proof, just one unshakable fact. The next morning, I woke up with a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, something would finally go right. I reached for my phone, hands trembling a little, and opened the banking app. For a moment, I held my breath, waiting for a miracle. But as soon as the error message flashed across the screen, "We're still experiencing a major technical issue. Services remain unavailable. Thank you for your patience." My heart sank. It felt like the universe was taunting me. I tossed my phone onto the nightstand, frustration boiling inside me. Was this how it would end? With me powerless, once again unable to defend myself? I ran a hand through my hair, trying to calm the storm in my mind. There had to be another way. There had to, but I kept coming up empty. How could I prove anything without access to my account? Every option I thought of seemed to collapse before I'd even finished thinking it through. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my spiral. Nina peeked in, 2 mugs of coffee in her hands. She took one look at my face and her own fell. "Still nothing?" she asked quietly. I shook my head, accepting the mug. The warmth in my hands was some small comfort, but it couldn't touch the anxious knot in my stomach. "Nothing." "I don't know what to do, Nina. I can't just show up and say, 'Trust me.' They'll always take Olivia's side. They always do. She sat down next to me, tucking her legs under herself like she was settling in for a long talk. There's gotta be another way, she murmured, almost as if she was talking to herself. Can you call your bank? Maybe they can confirm the transfers over the phone? I considered it, but I already knew the answer. Even if, by some miracle, I got through to someone at the bank, my parents weren't going to sit around and listen to me argue with a customer service rep. They'd just say it was another excuse, another delay. To them, Olivia was the golden child, always believable, always right. And besides, it was Christmas Day, no local branches open, and the customer service lines would be swamped. Still, desperation made me try. I dialed the number, chewing on my thumbnail as the line rang and rang. When the recorded message started, high call volumes due to a technical issue. Please try again later. I nearly laughed. Of course. Why would today be any different? I hung up, feeling even more trapped. I have to come up with something else, I muttered, half to myself, half to Nina. I can't walk in there empty-handed. If I do, she'll win again. We moved to the kitchen table, the morning light streaming in, the world outside quiet and still. I stared into my coffee, willing myself to think of a solution. It felt like every path was blocked. I replayed Olivia's smug expression in my mind, the way she'd waved those fake receipts around, how everyone had nodded along, believing her without question. There had to be something she'd missed, something she hadn't thought to cover up. Restless, I picked up my phone again, scrolling through apps and emails, barely paying attention. I was on autopilot, just going through the motions. Then it hit me with the force of a lightning bolt, the bank's confirmation emails. Every time I'd made a transfer, the bank sent me an automatic message. Those emails were stored in my inbox, untouched by whatever outage was affecting the app. I felt a surge of adrenaline, my heart pounding as I fumbled to open my email, searching for any sign of those confirmations. There they were. July, August, September, October, November, December. Each month, each transfer, each one with the exact amount and my parents' account number. It was all there, clear as day. Proof no one could deny. "Nina!" I practically shouted, shoving my phone toward her. "Look at this, the emails. Every single transfer right here with all the details. This is the proof I needed." Nina's eyes widened as she scanned the messages, a slow smile stretching across her face. Relief and vindication washed over me in waves. "You've got her now," she said, excitement in her voice. "There's no way Olivia can talk her way out of this. You finally have something solid." I nodded, feeling grounded for the first time in days. The idea of facing my family still made my stomach twist, but at least now I had the truth on my side. I'm going over there, but only with this proof in hand. If she tries to deny it, I'll show everyone these emails right in front of her. No more games. It was a strange mix of emotions, relief at finally having proof, anxiety at the confrontation ahead, and a deep, simmering anger at how easily things could have gone wrong. I realized how close I'd come to letting Olivia get away with it, just because I hadn't thought to check my email. Embarrassment crept in, tinged with regret and exhaustion. How had I not seen this sooner? It seemed so obvious, in hindsight. But my mind had been a mess since last night. The fight, the accusations, being called a liar by my own family. I'd been too busy trying to hold myself together to think straight. "God," I muttered, shaking my head at myself. I feel so stupid for not checking my email before. It's been here the whole time. Nina reached over and squeezed my arm, her touch warm and reassuring. "Don't beat yourself up," she said softly. "You've been through hell these last 24 hours. Anyone would have missed it. What matters is, you found it, and now you can stand up for yourself." Her words settled something inside me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Okay, I've got the proof. I'm going over there and I'm setting the record straight. If they still don't believe me, well, at least I'll know I did everything I could. At least I'll know I tried. As I prepared to leave, there was a new feeling in my chest, a sense of agency, of reclaiming control over my own story. Maybe my family would finally see the truth. Maybe they wouldn't. But for the first time in a long time, I was ready to fight for myself. Whatever happened next, I wasn't going to let Olivia's lies define me anymore. After this, it's on them. Na nodded, her eyes steady, her jaw set with determination. I've got your back, Sophie. Let's go show them the truth, she said, her voice quiet but unwavering. That simple promise felt like armor, and I held on to it as we drove the rest of the way in silence, the car humming with tension and anticipation. Pulling into my parents' driveway, I hesitated, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. The house glowed with holiday cheer, twinkling fairy lights blinking in the dusk, a lush wreath with a gaudy red bow hanging on the door. But to me, it looked smug, almost mocking. It was as if the house itself was daring me to buy into the fantasy, to pretend this was just another warm homecoming, all smiles and cocoa and carols. But I wasn't here for that. I was here to drag the truth into the open, no matter how much it hurt. I glanced at Na, who gave me a look, steady, calm, a silent message that I wasn't alone in this fight. That gave me just enough courage to open my door and step out into the cold. Together, we walked up the path to the front door, each step heavier than the last. My mother answered, her face tight, lips pressed in a thin line. Her eyes, usually so warm, were cool and assessing, as if she were bracing herself for a storm. "So you decided to come back," she said, her words clipped and sharp, cutting through any pretense of welcome. Behind her, Olivia leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a smirk curling her lips. She looked like a cat who'd been waiting for a mouse to walk right into her trap. "Did you come to apologize, Sophie?" she asked, her tone sugary sweet, but laced with venom. Way in the back, my father stood with his arms folded tightly across his chest, his gaze flat and unreadable. He looked like he was already regretting letting me in, like he'd rather just close the door and pretend I wasn't there. I forced a small, apologetic smile, trying to sell the lie. "I just want to celebrate Christmas with the family," I said, my voice soft, rehearsed. Each word tasted false, but I needed to play along, for now. "I don't want any more drama." My mother didn't reply right away, just gave me a hard, searching look. Finally, she stepped aside, her movement stiff. Olivia snorted as I passed her, leaning in just enough to whisper, "Took you long enough to come crawling back." I clenched my fist so hard my nails dug into my palm, but kept my expression perfectly blank. If she wanted to believe I was beaten, let her. Let them all think I'd come home waving a white flag. It would make what came next all the more powerful. Inside, the house buzzed with activity, relatives arriving in noisy, chaotic waves. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, aunts with arms open wide, uncles with booming voices, everyone acting as if nothing was wrong, as if this was just another joyful holiday gathering. I pasted on a smile, accepted hugs and small talk, and stayed, out of the way, watching the storm clouds gather beneath the surface. They had no idea what was coming. Dinner was a blur. The table overflowed with food and chatter, but my heart hammered in my chest, drowning out everything else. I knew Olivia. She couldn't resist making herself the center of attention. It was only a matter of time before she spun her version of events, casting herself as the victim and painting me as the villain. Sure enough, as plates were filled and conversation lulled, Olivia cleared her throat, loud and theatrical. All at once, the room quieted. She had everyone's attention. She leaned back in her chair, shoulders drooping in an exaggerated display of vulnerability. "Well," she began, glancing at me with that maddening, triumphant smirk, I think we all need to talk about the elephant in the room. The air in the dining room shifted, thickening with expectation. Fork stilled, eyes turned to her. She let her voice tremble, just enough to sound authentic. Last night was really tough for me, she said, pressing a hand to her chest. I never thought Sophie would stoop so low as to accuse me of lying. Honestly, it broke my heart. A hush fell. I could feel the weight of every gaze, some openly disapproving, others just wide-eyed and uncertain. My face burned with embarrassment and frustration, but I kept silent, waiting for her to finish her performance. But Olivia wasn't done. She leaned into her role, her tone dripping with wounded pride. I've always tried to be there for this family, she continued, her voice gaining strength. Sending money every month to help Mom and Dad, never asking for anything in return. And for her to accuse me in front of everyone. She let her voice crack, a tear glimmering in her eye. It's just beyond hurtful. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed her. She was a master at this, spinning stories, bending truth until it snapped. My parents nodded along, my mother's face contorted with pain and disappointment. You didn't deserve that, Olivia, my mother said, her voice hard, final. We've always known you're the responsible one. The room buzzed with murmurs, judgment pressing down on me from all sides. I could feel the collective verdict being passed. Cousins whispering, aunts shaking their heads, uncles frowning. It was like being on trial, with Olivia as prosecutor, judge, and jury. Under the table, I squeezed my phone so tightly it nearly slipped from my sweaty hand. This was the moment I dreaded, the reason I'd brought receipts. But now that I was here, the pressure was almost overwhelming, threatening to crush my resolve. Olivia dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, milking the moment. The silence stretched. Finally I stood, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. My heart pounded in my ears, but I forced my voice to stay steady. That's enough, I said, louder than I meant to, slicing through the tense quiet. Every head turned. Some faces registered surprise, others annoyance, a few outright hostility. I stayed standing, gripping my phone like a lifeline. You've had your turn, Olivia. Now it's mine. She rolled her eyes, her confidence unshaken. Here we go again. I ignored her theatrics. I've been sending Mom and Dad money every month since July, I said, my voice calm, measured. I don't make speeches about it, and I don't ask for recognition. But when Olivia claimed credit last night, I couldn't stay quiet. And I can prove it. I held up my phone, scrolling to the bank app, bringing up the email confirmations. Here are my receipts, direct from my bank. Every transfer, every date, every amount, clear as day. Olivia scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. Oh, please. Anyone can fake an email these days. You really expect them to believe that? I met her gaze, not backing down. These receipts are straight from the app. They're not fake. If you're so sure, let's compare them. Mom? Dad? Did you even look at the dates on Olivia's so-called receipts last night? Did you check if they matched the bank records? My parents faltered, uncertainty flickering across their faces. My dad scratched his chin, glancing at my mother for support. We didn't check, he admitted, his voice subdued. We just assumed. We don't really use the bank app. You just assumed she was telling the truth, I said, my voice tight, trembling with emotion I could barely contain. You trusted her without a second thought. The silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating. My heart hammered in my chest, but I forced myself to stand tall, refusing to shrink under their scrutiny. I could see doubt starting to creep into some faces around the table, the first cracks in the perfect facade Olivia had built. For the first time all night, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they would finally see the truth. Thought so. Now you'll see for yourselves, I thought, folding my arms tightly across my chest, standing my ground in the center of the kitchen. I met Olivia's eyes, daring her to challenge me, silently demanding the truth finally come out. Go check your ATM statements, I said, voice steady. They show the account numbers for every deposit. You don't need any fancy bank app for that. It's all there, black and white. For the first time, Olivia's smirk trembled, faltering for just an instant. It was a fleeting moment, but I saw it, a crack in her facade. She recovered quickly, her tone snapping back to that old edge of superiority. Fine, she spat, chin lifted high. Let them check. I have nothing to hide. But the tension in the room was palpable. My parents exchanged a glance. Discomfort etched into every line of their faces. The Christmas tree lights flickered in the corner, casting odd shadows on the walls. My mom's voice was so thin it barely reached my ears. It's Christmas. Do we really have to do this? Right now? The plea in her voice was almost enough to make me waver. But I shook my head, determination settling into my bones. Yes, we do, I answered, trying to keep my voice from trembling. My dad let out a long, weary sigh and grabbed his coat from the hook by the door. He didn't argue. We shuffled outside, the December air biting against my cheeks, my breath fogging before me as we walked to the car. No one spoke during the drive. The silence was a living thing, heavy and unyielding, wrapping around us until even the hum of the engine seemed too loud. At the ATM, Dad's hands shook ever so slightly as he slid in his card. He punched in his PIN, navigated to the transaction history, and began scrolling, dates and numbers flickering across the blue-lit screen. I held my phone out, showing him the screenshots I'd kept. Emails, confirmation numbers, every last detail. One by one he compared them, matching each deposit with the evidence on my phone. With every tap, I felt my heart thud a little harder. Then the truth laid itself bare. Dad clicked into the details of a July deposit, and there it was. The account number, plain as day, a perfect match to mine. He checked August, then September, then every month after. Each time, the numbers lined up exactly with the trail I'd brought. There was no denying it now. My mom stared at the screen, her face draining of all color. She pressed her hand to her mouth, voice barely more than a breath. It's Sophie's account, she whispered, as if saying it louder would make it less true. Every one of these transfers is from Sophie. The admission seemed to suck the air from the world. Olivia's lies unraveled in an instant. The statements she'd paraded around for months, her proof, turned out to be fakes, carefully constructed in case anyone ever bothered to look. I wondered how long she'd planned this, how much effort she'd put into maintaining the illusion. All those family gatherings, all those moments she'd basked in praise meant for me. We drove back in silence, the car now a tomb for all the things left unsaid over the years. When we pulled into the driveway, the house glowed with the warm lights of family, but inside the car, the atmosphere was cold, suffocating. My parents stared out the windshield, faces carved with regret and disbelief. Inside, the party's easy laughter came to an abrupt halt. The hum of conversation died, replaced by a tense, expectant hush as we entered. Every head turned, eyes wide with confusion and curiosity. I could feel their gazes, see the questions forming on their lips. And there was Olivia, standing by the door, her coat already on, purse slung over her shoulder. Her face was flushed, her usual poise gone. In its place was something raw, panic, guilt, maybe even fear. My dad's voice rang out, firm and steady for the first time that night. Olivia, he said, stepping forward, jaw clenched. We checked the statements. Every transfer came from Sophie's account. You've been lying to us. The room erupted into chaos. Gasps, murmured exclamations, the rustle of coats as people gathered their things. Relatives exchanged awkward glances, a few looking away in embarrassment, others shooting me apologetic looks as if they'd suddenly realized the part they'd played in my erasure. The trust they'd placed in Olivia, the quickness with which they'd believed her, now felt like a betrayal of their own. Olivia's carefully crafted mask shattered. She let out a sharp, humorless laugh, tears beginning to streak her cheeks. Fine, she shouted, her voice raw and bitter. Yes, I lied, okay? Is that what you want to hear? I lied. She swung around to glare at me, her eyes burning. You told me back in July you didn't want anyone making a big deal about sending them money. You just wanted to help quietly, so what's the harm in letting them think it was me? They already see me as the responsible one anyway. What difference does it make? Her words were like daggers, each one twisting deeper. The pain in my chest surged. I told you because I trusted you, I managed, hating how my voice shook. I thought maybe, for once, you'd help me, not use it to make yourself look better. I've spent years being invisible while you soaked up all the praise. Do you have any idea how humiliating this has been for me? How small you've made me feel? For a moment, something flickered in Olivia's eyes. A spark of remorse, or maybe just the shock of being exposed. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She straightened, icy again, her defenses rising. "They were never going to believe you over me, Sophie," she said, voice flat. "I didn't think it'd blow up like this." My mom stepped forward, voice trembling, her hands wringing nervously. "Why, Olivia? Why would you do this? We would have been grateful to either of you for helping. There was no reason to lie. No reason to hurt your sister like this." But Olivia said nothing. She simply grabbed her keys, head bowed, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. The sound echoed through the house, a punctuation mark on years of unspoken resentment. The silence that followed was absolute. It settled deep in my bones, heavier than any words that might have filled the space. My parents turned to me, the weight of their regret written plainly on their faces. Years of favoritism, of assumptions and neglect, hung between us like a specter. My dad cleared his throat, but his voice was thick. "Sophie," he said, struggling to meet my eyes, "we owe you an apology. A huge one. We should have listened to you. We should have seen you. Really seen you. And we didn't. I'm so sorry." My mom nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, her voice cracking with every word. "We've treated you unfairly for so long. We let ourselves believe what was easiest instead of what was true. I don't know how we can make it up to you, but we'll try. I swear we'll try." I stood there, a storm of emotions swirling inside me. Relief, anger, vindication, sorrow. Forgiveness felt like a distant shore, something I wanted to reach but couldn't yet bring myself to swim toward. "I appreciate the apology," I said softly, my words barely rising above the hush. "But this doesn't erase everything. It's going to take time. A lot of time." They both nodded, their silence now heavy with understanding. For the first time, I saw something in their faces I hadn't seen before. Not just regret, but a genuine willingness to change, to finally see me. The rest of the night passed in quiet reflection. The house, once bustling with laughter and music, was empty save for the three of us, surrounded by the debris of a broken celebration. The Christmas tree blinked in the corner, ornaments casting tiny rainbows on the floor. It wasn't the Christmas I'd pictured, not by a long shot, but at least the truth had finally clawed its way free. For the first time in years, I wasn't the villain in my own story, and for the first time I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, things could start to change.